Hey, Be It listener, what's up? I have an awesome guest for you, Jason Frazell. So fun. We probably should have recorded everything before I hit record and then after. It might, out of context, mean nothing to most listeners, but it was super fun. And I'm really excited to have his words in your ears because he is someone who was in a regular, real job, like all jobs are real. That's lame, but really like, the ones with the 401k and the health insurance and the paid vacations and all the things. And he was slaying, he was doing so great and he changed that. And he's now working for himself and it can be scary. And, like many of us who had maybe started something new. And then the pandemic happened, Brad and I, Brad came working for me full time 3 months before with me, 3 months before the pandemic happened. And, it can be really scary when you have made a leap and then something happens that makes you question whether or not that leap was a good idea or not. And so what I love is he made that leap. He's dove straight in. He's really rocking it. And he's an expert in a lot of things. And he's got a really cool podcast. And I was on it. So y'all got to go listen. We'll have that link in the show notes below. But what I hope you hear from this podcast is that, having people around you that support you, inspire you is important, especially when you're wondering if you should do the thing. And also that whatever it is that you're doing, working for someone, working for yourself, there's a lot of pressures and a lot of scary stuff. But if it's a thing that you have on your heart to do, you got to do it. You got to find a way to do it. So here is Jason Frazell. Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started. All right, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to Be It Till You See It. I am so excited. I have a conversation for you. I have this amazing guest. His name is Jason Frazell. I hope I didn't screw that up because I definitely didn't ask.
You're good.
That's so funny is we randomly connected inside of a group that we're both in. And then because the world is so small and I was like, who knows who's ever interviewed a Pilates person? You're like, oh, do you happen to know this guy, Benjamin? I'm like, oh yeah. Benjamin and I go way back, like years back. So it's just so funny that we have mutual friends in common and we didn't even know each other until the interwebs brought us together. So Jason, can you tell everyone who's listening who you are and what you're excited about right now?
Yeah, Lesley, I am. So like I said, I'm Jason Frazell. Congratulations on getting my last name correct in the first try. Yeah. So that puts you in the top third of all people. There you go.
Wow. We like to be unique.
Yeah. So I always like to start with, so I'm a dad. I've got 2 kids, married, from Minnesota, live in New York now. Moved out 15 years ago. So I call myself a East Coaster with a Midwestern attitude sometimes. So that's where I was
sometimes.
Like to start.
15
sometimes.
Years. I mean, yeah, it's a sometimes at that point.
I can also cut people New York style.
Yeah.
So what I do for work, which is what I think you're asking is I'm a growth and leadership coach, and I specifically focus on people and teams in tech. So I work with founders, co-founders, individual contributors, directors, all the way up, both in startups and in big tech. So I have customers that work at places like Facebook and Google, and I also coach with a lot of startups. In addition to that, I'm a fellow podcaster, and we won't spoil the surprise. We will spoil the surprise. Lesley's going to be a guest on my show soon, very soon. I have a show called Talking to Cool People. It's a fun podcast similar to this where we'll talk about some cool stuff. And then I'm also a personal brand strategist at a company called Brand Builders Group, which I know you're familiar with.
Yeah.
A little bit about me.
I love Brand Builders. They've been so good to me. And also we've had many brand builders on the show. So it's really nice. Yeah, it's really great. Jason, I want to talk about being a leadership coach though, because I think it's really interesting because I think so few people realize how much of a leader they are on this planet, right? Like every single one of us has its opportunity to lead people. And we think it's like, oh, maybe you only teach 5 people, or maybe you only, maybe maybe you don't actually run a company, but we actually all have an opportunity to be a leader to somebody. So how do you become a leadership coach? And then second, what are you seeing happening as far as people, what's getting in the way of people seeing that in themselves?
Yeah. I'm going to answer the first part of your question with two answers. How do you become a leadership coach? You don't have to do anything. You can call yourself a leadership coach. So it's not like being a Pilates. I mean, I guess you could call yourself a Pilates instructor.
Yeah, we're supposed to go through training.
Right. But so you could call yourself that, but then people would go, wait a second, how are you trained? So anybody can call themselves a leadership coach, life coach, and executive coach. So that's what makes the coaching industry a little bit different is there's no regulation.
Right.
So you see people call themselves, my guess is there's probably Pilates coaches who don't have training, would be my guess. Or if they don't have the level of training that you do. That's so to answer the first part of your question, how I became a leadership coach is I actually almost 4 years ago was in the middle of my corporate career, and I just something wasn't working for me and I wasn't really sure what it was. I ended up hiring somebody, worked with her for 8 months. Through that work, decided that I was going to go through the same coach training program that she went through. Ended up doing a year-long coach training program, put in hundreds of hours. From there, have coached over 1,000 hours of people, and I'm now a leader at that coach training program. So how I call myself a leadership coach is how you call yourself a Pilates coach, is through training and time in the field and the good, bad, and the ugly that all that comes with.
That is insane. That's a lot. So, but I also love that because I think sometimes what it sounds like is you set out to work in corporate and had this job, and then you're like, I have a problem. I'm going to hire someone. And then you're like, wow, this is really cool. I want to help other people.
Yeah.
I actually think that's how most people end up where they're going to be. And
totally.
And they put this pressure on themselves that they're supposed to know what they want to be when they grow up, but they might not have had the experience to know what that is yet.
No, I'm so with you. So if you talk a lot of coaches that I know that do more personal coaching, most of them hired a coach and they're like, oh, this work is really fulfilling. Oh, this is something I want to do. So I agree with you on all that. And yeah, I agree. I think that's for those, and I came from corporate. I worked almost 20 years in corporate. For me, it's like, hey, something's missing. I've got this problem. I'm not sure what the problem is, which is an interesting way to buy something when you're like, I don't know what the problem is, but I'm going to spend money on it anyway. And then quickly discovered what it was is I just didn't like what I was bored. I mean, that's what it came down to. I was bored and I had the entrepreneurial fire and I was too comfortable. So I didn't know it. And so there's yada, yada, as they say on Seinfeld, here we are on a podcast.
But it's all I have friends who lost their jobs and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. They're like, honestly, the best thing that ever happened because it was too comfortable, but also couldn't leave it. Cause it's hard to leave the paycheck and the guaranteed and all the benefits and all the things. So you've been thousands of hours later. So my other question is what keeps people from thinking that they're a leader?
Yeah. So for some people, and I think this really relates to, I don't want to stereotype, but you see this is obviously going to make sense for people that are a little bit newer into their career, newer into their personal journey, is the idea that you have to have somebody reporting to you. You have to have some sort of actual authority over somebody. I don't agree with that. I think to your point, we always have the opportunity to be leaders. So for example, you and I are going to have people listen to us on this podcast and they're going to go, they may like me, they may hate me, but they're probably going to listen to what I have to say. Same for you. They probably love you, which is why they're tuning in.
The laugh is helpful. Actually, I think some of them listen for that.
Yeah. They like the laugh. They like Leslie's laugh and amongst other things. But so I think the disconnect for people is understanding that we actually know a lot more than we think we do, especially when we're starting out, especially in fields where it's not purely about expertise. Like things like sales, things like marketing, where a lot of that is very artful, and you bring a different perspective. Like obviously there are certain fields that are quite into the know, like engineering, manufacturing, where you really need to know the specifics. I think like fitness, you really need to know a lot of the science behind that to do a good job with it. But understanding that what you bring is a unique flavor, and that as you build that, people look to you as a leader, whether or not you're managing them. I think that's one of the first disconnects. The second disconnect that I see is people that have a job they don't like, and they don't acknowledge that all the other roles they play in their life has them be a leader, whether they're a parent, they're a spouse, or they're in a romantic relationship, they have friends, they're involved in their church, they're involved in charities. all those places we get to show up as leaders. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm not a leader because I don't manage anybody at work.
Right.
And I would say, do you help your kids with their homework? That's leadership. I mean, it's parenting, but it's also leadership. And how do you show up there? So I'm with you. Everybody is a leader in their own way. And we all play that in many, many different roles.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So I want to go, so you recently got into your coaching business. So you were in corporate for 20 years. How recent? I mean, like thousands of hours of coaching, 3 years. Okay.
Yeah. 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it feels like a long time.
Well, especially with the COVID year, I feel like
especially with the COVID year. Yeah, exactly.
Especially with the COVID year. I'm always shocked when I realize we moved to Vegas, Las Vegas from Los Angeles during the pandemic. And it surprises me how long I've lived here because it doesn't, it feels long. It also doesn't feel that long. So it's like it's a weird time warp, but anyways, you've been doing this for a little over 3 years, thousands of hours. Similar to when we started this podcast, there was no episodes, no listeners. When you start a coaching business, it's not like you open the doors and people are like lined up already. So how did you start that? Like, how did you go? Cause there is a be it till you see it in there. Like you're telling people I'm a coach and yet you have no clients.
Yeah. I'm laughing about this for two reasons. One, because there's a lot of people on LinkedIn who will sell you that will try and sell you on, oh, we'll fill up your practice with these people. No.
Oh my God. They do that on you know what? I think that there's because I get the DMs on Instagram daily.
Same thing, probably.
Right. Like here for $7, you can get 7,000 followers. And also like, what's your affiliate? Cause I can bring you tons of customers. It's like,
and you're like, yeah,
I don't think you can. So this happens on LinkedIn. Okay.
Yeah. So, the way that I started my business is, well, first of all, I just started it. Right. So I just said, okay. And I was in my coach training program. So I had a grand total of maybe 30 hours of training and decided that I was going to go out and find some clients. Yeah. So I went out and did that. And I did that through word of mouth and my network and said, hey, this is what I'm up to. Anybody interested in doing some pro bono stuff? Because when you start out, it's nice to, it's nice to get out, get some referrals, some testimonials, and let people know that, hey, like, I'm new to this. And I wasn't trying to pretend somebody I wasn't. I'm new to this and I'd love to provide this service to you. And through that work, just generated some paying clients, which then generates more paying clients, and on we go. So for me, it was just a matter. It was kind of like a be it till you, like, hey, like this is what I'm going to do, and this is how we train new coaches in the coach training program I'm a leader at. Just go out and talk to people and start doing it. There's all these, and this kind of goes back to the LinkedIn or the Instagram thing. Generate followers or LinkedIn or all these tricks of getting people, just go talk to people, share authentically on your Facebook page or on your LinkedIn or on your IG. Like, this is what I'm up to. Do you know anybody? And eventually you'll start to attract the people that you're meant to work with, and the rest is history.
Yeah. I mean, there's very few businesses that cannot be built on referrals. And yes, I think like social media makes us all think that it's a numbers, if it's about how many followers we have. But I know people who have 1,000 followers who make hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And I know people who have hundreds of thousands of followers who make no money. So it's not the followers. It's like it is that word of mouth. Did you help someone? Did you change their life in some way? And then asking them, who else do you know who could use what I just gave you? And it's really crazy. So I think it's really cool. I love that you started out with like, hey, I'm working on this thing. Can I work with you? And like, can you tell me who? I think that it's, that is also scary because so many people are afraid of rejection.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, and I came from I spent almost 20 years in sales and corporate sales and technology. I worked at some big companies, worked at some startups. So I was used to getting no's, right? But it's different getting a no when you're like, I don't want your piece of software, and like, no, I don't want to work with you at an individual level. That's a very different no. And it took me a while to get used to it. And I don't ever like being told no, but that's a whole different conversation, but I still don't like it, but it's hard because it's just you. Like it was just me and my business and the service that I provided with nothing else behind it. And people are like, I don't think so. I'm like, oh, well, what's wrong with me? Like what's wrong with me? Right. What do I need to do differently? And,
so
I don't know if this is,
what do you do differently? Like, cause it's true. Like, my husband, he does talks on like 200 no's. Like that's how you build your business. Like go for
Ah,
the no's, because the
yeah.
more no's you get, like the better you get at talking about what you do and all the stuff. And he, he's born a salesperson. So it's really
I
amazing.
like him
And
already.
no's, I know no's do not like bother him that much. He's just like, oh, I mean, like it's kind of amazing. So it's been helpful for me as someone who, when people say no, it's like, oh, it feels like it's a no to you when
Sure.
it's not. So, how did you get over that? Or how do you teach people to like not take those no's when it's their personal business,
Yeah.
your personal coaching? Like, how do you take that? What do you tell yourself?
Yeah. So this is an interesting question. I'm thinking about this, how I do it for myself. And then also when I'm coaching other entrepreneurs who get a lot of no's is getting curious about what you make it mean about you. It's like, what is that? And like that for you, when you're for getting those no's, like, what do you make it mean about you? Do you make it mean that there's something that you're not talented enough? Does it mean that there's something about who you were? And then also the idea, like what your husband, it's just a numbers game. And when you get out of the scarcity mindset and into the abundance mindset, which these are overused jargony stuff, but it's true. Like there's more people that I'm the perfect coach for than could ever hire me. It's like, there's more people that could fight. They just don't know who I am. And that's it. So that's what we tell. And there's a coach out there. She has something that I like to quote. Her name's Stacy Bayman. She's this coach for selling life coaching, and her target demographic is females. She has this one thing that she says it really stuck with me. She said, "What would you do if you knew your ideal clients were looking for you? Like, what would you do today? What would you do tomorrow? Like, what's the thing that you would do?" Because like what we all do is we're like, oh, there's nobody out there, nobody's interested. But like, if I knew that you wanted to hire me and you just didn't know me, what would I actually do? And would I post on social media? Would I pay for ads? Would I do search engine? Would I go to a networking event? And like, that's the thing that I'll just say like, hey, what would you do? Because the truth is there are people out there for everybody. And I really do believe that.
That's so good. I love that
It's
so
Stacy's.
much.
I wish I could take it. It's Stacy's, but
I know. Well, Stacy, thanks so much. We're all going to live by that, because like even inside, like it's almost like I wish I had heard that, even though I believe that they're like, I'm the right person for the right people. And that it's okay if you don't like what I'm offering, because there are more people. Just even hearing that would change how I would like change even the thoughts I have posting on when there's a sale or when there's a launch, because
yeah,
it's like, what if people were looking, they're actually Googling, and you need to come up, and like, how would you do that? And you'd be less scared. Oh, it's like, that's way better than leap and the net will appear. Like, right. That's so good.
yeah,
Yeah, I do think like fear of rejection is real, and it keeps people from
sure.
doing so. Okay. You mentioned earlier, and maybe this is too personal, just, let me know, but like you have two
Nothing's too
kids.
personal. I'm here.
Yeah. You have two kids, you're married, like, and you wanted to switch careers. How hard, like, what did you go, how did you do that? And also like, was that scary? Because I do think, when people might not know, in 2019, Brad sold his companies and came fully on board with my businesses, which is so exciting. And then 3 months later, we had COVID happen, and I was like, oh, well, okay, this ship is only sailing with this is all we got. So here we go.
Yeah.
But like, what was it like for you with kids and a spouse? Like, was it easy to make that transition, or was it hard?
Well, I'm very fortunate that my wife is amazing. And so it could have been a lot harder if it wasn't for the fact that I told her what I saw and what I believed was possible, and she was on board with me. My wife is more of a vision and goals and person than I am. I'm more the pragmatic, practical. This is where the Midwestern comes in. Like, I don't know, what's practical about all this? And she's more like, hey, well, what do you think would make you happy? What do you believe? What does your intuition tell you? And I had been fortunate. I had a good career before that, so it wasn't like I was living paycheck to paycheck at that point. So it was, it was a conscious family decision.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I'm fortunate to have an amazing partner that supported me in that, because I was, if the tables were turned, I don't know that I would have had the same response. Be like, well, what do you mean? Go back and get another job, making what you're making. We got to keep this money flowing in. So yeah. The truth is it's all about a powerful conversation with my wife and just getting aligned on what I'm going to do and why. And it also helped that when I decided to do this, I had already started the business. So it was a side hustle that went full-time quite quickly, but I had a few proof points. It's not like one day I'm like, I'm out of here, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
I was already churning out a couple clients, and it certainly wasn't enough to pay the bills, but I was on the path already.
Yeah.
Which that's one thing I would say to everyone listening is you don't have to just quit full boat and go full into it immediately. A lot of people that I coach that work in like places like Facebook and they want to do a side hustle, they do them both.
Yeah.
And then at some point your business becomes big enough where you do need to go out and do it yourself. I do believe at some point you have to work only in your business, but there's no shame in like doing the side hustle stuff. You know, like there seems to be this culture, like if you're really committed, you'll just do it. I'm like, that's not realistic for a lot of people.
Thank you for saying that. I think it's 100% true. I mean, I think it's easy for people looking outside. They might see that someone went from Facebook to this company and they're like, whoa, but really most people are, if they are transitioning from one thing to the other, there was a time where they were doing two things. And like, that's how all of my businesses were. You know, I was running studios as I was renting space far enough away that it was allowed, but also like building my own business. And then, I figured out how many clients I had to have to make the switch. And then we made that leap. And that was sitting down and like being really conscious about like how many people is that, so I could make that switch. And it's difficult, and we didn't have kids. So it was a lot easier. I could overwork a little bit for a short period of time to make that happen. And then when I want to transition again, you know, we did the bridge again. And the only time it was like let the boat, you know, burn the boats or whatever was because of COVID. It was like, oh, yes, well, we're going to have to close that studio and this, because it's not reopening anytime soon.
No. State mandated.
Yeah, I know. I think and if you're listening to this, I lived in California, so the gyms didn't open for 13 months. So it was, you know, I was just like, this is not, I could see the writing on the wall. I'm like, they're not reopening me anytime soon. So I think, thank you for sharing that. Cause I do believe a lot of people think I have to have it all together and I have to go all in. And it's like, I just believe that there's like, there's a trial period. There's a trying something on, there's like figuring it out. And then knowing that you have a little bit, and then you have to get uncomfortable. So can we talk about that? Like is it still uncomfortable in your business, or now you're 3.5 years in, like it feels a little less uncomfortable? Like what was that like going, you know, that getting comfortable with uncomfortability?
Yeah. So it's still uncomfortable because my business is morphing is the word I'll use, or it's becoming more aligned to what I actually want to do all day. Mm-hmm. Every day. It's kind of like, I don't know how it's kind of even like my podcast. I'm at almost 100 episodes. It's a little different than it was 100 episodes ago. And so that is, to me, that's a fun, uncomfortable. I'm actually one of those people I kind of like being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So it's fun because for me, uncomfortable means that I'm a little bit in the unknown, which means there's something super creative and innovative, which is like where I do my best work.
Yeah.
But after spending 20 years with a paycheck every 2 weeks, and a bunch of operational people and benefits and stock options and 401ks and all that. And then to suddenly be like, oh, wait, if I want to make any money and be successful, it's on me today. Like that's still uncomfortable. I'm still getting used to that. I call that a corporate context. I'm still breaking it up. Yeah. Because there's days where I'm like, man, I just wish I'd have somebody that would just tell me what to do today, or like send me 20 clients. And like, no. So the uncomfortable part is, and the exciting part is what's next. Who's my next client? So for me, like, I don't know who my next client might be.
Right.
I might get somebody to hit my website today, which might be the client that hires me at my highest rate, which refers me 10 clients, which creates the business of my dreams. Or that might not happen for a year. And that's the uncomfortable thing. Cause my automatic place that I like to go is I like to know. How's it going to go? Cause I was in sales. So your husband probably like sales is all about predictability.
Right.
Oh, like, hey, quarter after quarter, how am I going to build this pipeline? And it's just not a thing in my business. So that part is uncomfortable for me.
Well, and also I'm reading Joe Dispenza's book. Who knows what it's called, actually. I'm sorry. I'm obviously not reading it. It's on Audible. So I just hit play. Anyways, it's about getting out of your own way. Someone will tell me on Instagram and go, shame on you for not knowing. He's brilliant. He is brilliant. It's amazing. But he talks about like how we all want cause and effect. We're all living in this like Newtonian thing, which is like, this happens and this happens. But when we start to actually understand that we are causing an effect, that is like it's like you're unstoppable. It's this crazy thing. And it's true because I was in corporate, I was in fitness corporate, which is nice.
Yeah.
Like they put budgets out. I
Yeah.
have
You're
to
like,
meet
cool.
them, and like I led a team and I had vacations and 401ks and amazing health insurance I don't have anymore. I have something
Yeah.
that they let a self-employed person buy, but that is all there is something about that. And on a bad day, I'll go, gosh, what am I doing? And then and then I can look back at like the promotions I didn't take, and I can look to the friends that are still there, and I can go, I'm not that person. And
Yeah.
that's, I think to go back would be denying that I'm like, I am someone who has to keep creating, and I have to, as much as I hate it, I clearly love being in the unknown because I spend so much time there.
Yeah. Well, I heard just a quick anecdote on this. I don't know if you saw what happened to Peloton last week, but
Tell me.
Peloton was one of the best performing stocks during kind of the height of COVID. They released their quarterly earnings last week. They were not good. Their stock dropped 35% and they went on a hiring freeze, I saw, as of today.
Wow.
So like, and I say this to people that are in corporate, that it might be more secure, but it's not that much more secure. You're still at the whim and mercy of one bad quarter and they drop 35%, and all those, I'm assuming all those employees hold stock options. There goes 35% of your wealth and stock options down.
Well,
Right
100%.
then.
Well, because that's it. You're either like you and we work for ourselves. So like I am at the mercy of making sure my messaging is good enough that people buy it. But those corporations are at the mercy of those investors and those stockholders and people. And so like however you slice it, there are people you answer to, and there is difficulties and there is scary times. But like, I think, if you were to look back, I don't know, I don't answer for you, but when I look back,
Mm-hmm.
I would be struggling right now to work for someone doing something and not doing what I'm doing right now, because what I'm doing right now is like literally what's inside of me, what like comes to my mind, what keeps me up at night, and I can take action on that. I feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose. And I think that's what it is. So I don't know. I think it's hard to be uncomfortable, but I don't know that it was much more comfortable on the other side. It was just like there's a paycheck.
Right. But I mean, as a salesperson, it sounds like all the things you're doing, there's a lot of uncomfortable meetings you go to where you tell your boss, oh, we're bringing in this $1 million deal. And then the customer's like, yeah, we're not doing it. And then you have to have that's not comfortable either.
Right. I think I think the grass looks greener on the other side, and we think that it's all there. But the reality is that like, putting one footstep in front of the other without knowing what it's going to be is like the way you get anywhere, So
I'm with you. You and I are on the same page for sure, Lesley.
All right, Jason, how do people get to know you, get to work with you, find out how to get leadership coaching with you? Because it sounds like you're doing some really cool stuff with all of these companies.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Lesley. Yeah. Best place to start is just my website. It's just my name. So it's Jason Frazell, FRAZELL.com. And from there, you can also connect with me on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. And I do want to put in a plug that, and I mentioned earlier, I'm a podcaster as well. And if anybody here is listening who is interested in coming on my podcast next year, it's called Talking to Cool People. You can check it out. We'll talk about it on my podcast, how the name came about. It was pretty funny. And so you can connect with me there and listen to some of my episodes. I talk with all sorts of interesting people from, very diverse set of individuals that I've talked to over the last couple of years. So connect with me on all the social. I'm the only person on social with my name, I believe. It's a pretty unique name. Yeah. And then my website. And I look forward to hearing from you and connecting with you and seeing how I can support everybody out there.
Yeah. Well, our listeners will be very excited. Y'all, he does talk to cool people. He interviewed Benjamin Dagenhart, and our listeners many of them are big fans of his. So y'all can go.
I know Benjamin. So yes, that's awesome.
It's so crazy.
Such a small world.
It's so small. He's amazing. We used to pre-COVID run into each other all over the world because of
I can
Pilates.
imagine.
So like
I can imagine
we would be at the same events, and it's like, I would never see him in our home cities, but we'd see each other in other people's cities, which is so fun. Okay. So I ask everyone, bold, executable, intrinsic, targeted steps to prioritizing yourself. How do you be it till you see it? What tips do you got for us?
Yeah, be it till you see it. So first things first, this is very tactical for those who are, and I think this applies to salespeople working for others. This applies to entrepreneurs. Put in your calendar, block out in your calendar like you had customers there or you had clients there. So for new salespeople, I coach a lot of salespeople. When you start out, there's like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of things to learn and do. Like block out your calendar like you had those appointments already, and then use that time to prospect. Use that time to get, as Brad said, use that time to get some no's and hopefully some yeses. Yeah. If for an entrepreneur, like you're, I don't know, like let's say you're a new personal trainer and you've got 3 clients and you've got, 20 hours of your week not ready, book it up and then figure out what you're going to use that time for to either improve yourself, go find clients. So I think there's some energy that gets put out when you do that. There's some things of like, that's like I'm not going to say manifesting, but you're actually telling the universe or spirit or God or whatever you believe, hey, there's some stuff that I'm going to be doing here. And it also trains you to get used to what the schedule is going to be like. So for example, some coaches like, I want 30 clients a week. And I'm like, do you?
I know. I get that a lot when we coach Pilates instructors. I'm like, I think I want to teach 30 hours a week. I'm like, you do? You want to teach 30 hours a week?
You're like, have you ever taught 30 hours a week? And they're like, nope. You're like, I could tell.
Yeah. So let me just tell you, you don't. That's a lot of human beings.
It's a lot of human beings, and it's like you won't get to eat probably.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and I think it was President Obama who once said this, is I think he said this in one of his books. And if I misquoted it, it's okay. I think he said, yeah, it's, yeah, exactly. He said like, act as if. I think it was him. It's one of the things, because people were, I think, if I'm not mistaken, somebody had asked him when he was a junior senator in Illinois, how did you ascend to become the president? Is like almost unheard of in that way. He's like, I just had to go into rooms and act as if I was the president, act as if I was a senior member of the Senate, act as if I belonged in the room. So when I say that, I don't mean it from like an imposter's way or like trying to, alpha it or become the dominant person. It's like, just go in and like act like you own it. Yeah. Because the secret that I love to say, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I really do, is most people don't know what they're talking about or doing most of the time anyway. No. Like they have training, like all these experts and gurus out there. I'm like, these people don't know anything more than you and I do. They just have good, shiny sales and marketing. And if you just
100% correct on that. I remember.
The fitness industry is full of people like this, right?
Oh, 100. I'll be in the rooms and I'll be like, oh my God. And I hear, I'm like, I've been trained by people bigger deals than you. Like I've been like, oh, it's just that they acted as if they put themselves out there. They took the risk. So, I think we tend to put people up on pedestals who are actually our equals. And if you met them and actually talked to them, they would see you as an equal as well. Like we're putting them up there when they're like, hey, I'm just right over here with you.
Yeah, I'm just right over here with you. And but the thing I think that that a lot of those people do, and I do think there's some snake oil stuff out there. There's a lot of good people who have this kind of, like same place. What they are willing to do, though, is get uncomfortable and share themselves. And this kind of like, they're willing to show up, even when they're not ready. And I think that's one of the things that holds back a lot of people, especially in the entrepreneurial space, especially personal brand space, is being willing to show up and speak your truth and let the world know who you are without it having to be perfect. Because to me, there's no such thing as perfect.
Yep. That's a mantra around here. Perfect is boring. Do it messy.
That's a mantra at Brand Builders too. It's like, we're not going to do it perfectly, but like, we're going to do it. We're going to get out there and we're going to do it.
Yeah. Well, because one of my favorite people on this planet, Jill Coleman, says perfect is the thing keeping you from being consistent.
Totally.
And honestly, most of the people doing things that you're like, gosh, someday when I'm ready, they weren't ready. They weren't perfect. They just were consistently showing up. And so, yeah. Well, Jason, thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the Be It Till You See It podcast. I can't wait to be on talking to cool people. Oh,
yeah. Yes, Lesley, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here with everybody.
Oh, you're amazing. This is a great conversation. And everyone, please screenshot this, tag Jason Frazell, tag Be It Pod. Let us know your takeaways. Let us know how you're going to act as if and how you're going to use these Be It tips. And until next time, be it till you see it. That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it.
Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day.
Be It Till You See It is a production of As the Crows Fly Media.
It's written, produced, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Crowell. Our associate producer is Amanda Fratarelli.
Kevin Perez at Diseño handles all of our audio editing.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to our designer Jairo Mandal for creating all of our visuals, which you can't see because this is a podcast, and our digital producer Jay Perdoso for editing all the video each week so you can.
And to Angelina Herrico for transcribing each of our episodes so you can find them on our website. And finally, to Meredith Crowell for keeping us all on point and on time.